Hello guys, today I have 5 things that I think a lot of people have probably missed. I've kind of had people, I guess, like ask me questions about the game, ask for advice about the game, and for whatever reason a lot of people don't remember these things or they don't consider these things. These may just be things that you may not have known, nuances or something to some of the features I'm going to be discussing, but let's just get right into it. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is the knickknack vouchers, and if you've done any rolling or if you've gotten to the end game at all, you'll know that you can sell sigils, you can sell right stones, you get more knickknack vouchers, and then you have this endless cycle of getting resources or getting, vouchers to then roll for gear. But something that I think people should definitely take into consideration, there's actually a lot of treasures that you can end up selling because either it's really uncommon for you to use them, or you get so much of it that it's infinite. It's like an infinite pile, and you could just sell them for more knickknack vouchers that you can then use to reroll sigils with. In this list right now, I'm going to detail a couple of ones that I find myself farming a lot of, and obviously it kind of just depends on what you have or what you farm, but the ones that I found myself to be kind of going infinitely on is rainbow prisms. And let's be clear, like, you can definitely, as you can see that you get them from certain proud missions, but especially with how often I'm doing either side quests, treasure trades, or the last stage for weapons, this is kind of a treasure that you'll never run out of, so this is something that I definitely end up selling a decent amount. Now again, just to be clear, if you need some of these things, definitely don't sell them, and again, it kind of depends on how much of each stock you have, but again, just from the time that I've spent farming, that was one of the things that I definitely had a lot of extra of. Currently, I've also been farming the stage Worst Vacation Ever because in my opinion, it's probably the easiest proud stage to AFK. If you haven't seen my AFK guide on how to create like the perfect AFK farm or a decent AFK farm at the very minimum, you should go check out that video now or wherever it is. In any case though, if you end up clearing the stage where you fight Garrison and the Narabanjus, the eyeballs, you get a lot of these eternal snowflakes, and as you can see, all I think it takes is about like 100 or something, 100 snowflakes, and you get 400-ish vouchers, which is great value. And honestly, you don't really use these snowflakes for anything. I end up selling this pretty much every single time that I come back from AFKing, maybe like 20 to 30 runs worth of the, worst vacation stage, but you don't really use them for anything. Maybe I'm just missing out on some of the characters. I've only right now upgraded Id, like Io, and a couple of these other characters. Maybe like 7 or 8 characters total I've upgraded. Maybe I haven't seen the character that needs this yet, but from what I can tell, you don't really need that much of this treasure, and it sells for a pretty good amount. Or at the very minimum, you should definitely consider selling this if you need the extra knickknacks for sigils, because again, more often than not, I actually cap. I literally had just finished selling right before this video. I had just finished selling literally all of my eternal snowflakes, and after about 40 minutes worth of coming up with the script for this video or coming up with the idea for this video, I'm back at 880. Another thing that you'll probably notice is that a lot of these like shards and orbs and stuff will gradually start to pick up, and you'll get infinite of them at some point. However, I don't like to sell too much of it because you definitely need these for certain recipes. Certain side quests, if I'm not mistaken, also take either shards or water orbs or something in between. So I don't like to sell these that much. However, that being said, even for this, I do like to comb it a little bit. So like in this case, I'll probably sell something like 100 just to make sure I don't overcap, and I'm still progressively gaining more, resource while also not capping out. But that takes us into arguably one of the most valuable knickknack voucher transitions or transactions that you can do, and that's with the Reality Thorn and the Terror Urns. Now this is from beating up the last boss of the game, which is Proto Bahamut, and this is great, number one, because if you get unlucky, you could basically trade in these Reality Thorns for knickknack vouchers, and in case if you're unlucky with getting something like damage cap or tyranny or stamina from the final stage, you can sell these and get extra knickknack vouchers, which then you could use to obviously buy sigils. But I will preempt that I definitely do see Reality Thorns and Terror Urns and Divinity Shackles as things that you definitely need, I believe, to upgrade the final stage or some of the final awakenings of the weapons. So keep that in mind when you're trying to sell these. But moving along, we have something that again you get from Worst Vacation Ever, which is again, in my opinion, one of the easier proud missions to AFK in. As you can see, I have 843 of this chilling demon eye, and if you just look at the actual value of this thing, all I sold was about what I think it was like 26 or something of the chilling eyes, and I got 290 knickknack vouchers. But alongside that same stage, you also get the Searing War Axe. Garrison alongside Narabanju are the two, I guess, like bosses that you fight in there. So you get both the Searing War Axe and the Chilling Demon Eye. Both of these, again, sell for really good value. Oh yeah, it says right there, the exchange rate is 1 to 15. Arguably, you could use the Searing War Axe to trade in for Centrums, and I understand like that may be a more valuable exchange or use of the Searing War Axe. However, the thing about the exchange with the Searing War Axe is that you actually need the Frosty War Axe, and like it or not, you'll probably never hit a point where you're actually able to exchange the Frosty War Axe at the same rate as the Searing War Axe, so you might as well just sell it so that you get it to like a balanced rate. It's free sigils, guys. And that's pretty much everything that I have to talk about, specifically with the knickknack vouchers in the store. In all honesty, I know people are fiending for damage caps or for tyrannies or for stamina, but if you're able to get to a point where you're able to AFK, a lot of the treasures end up selling for a lot of value when it comes to knickknack vouchers. And then again, you just re-roll them, you get infinite rolling capacity with sigils that you can also, you know, you can sell the sigils, you can sell the treasures and the right stones, all these things all at the same time. And again, after about, I don't know, maybe an hour, 2, or even 3 of doing AFKing, I don't think I've ever really had to go back and like start farming for things without having to first roll like 10,000 worth of knickknack vouchers, which is great value, but also Granblue, please add like a 10 times roll or something. My hands really hurt. Okay, now something that kind of goes hand in hand with the gaining of sigils and getting a bunch of knickknack vouchers is obviously whether or not you want to AFK. Now, if you choose to AFK, that's totally fine. If you don't want to, that's also totally fine. But something that I don't think people realize or remember is that since you're able to change what skills you have available on your AI, you can pretty much optimize your runs so that stages that are kind of tedious or that kind of just need to be, you know, crowd controlled or controlled heavily can be basically one shot in under like 45 seconds to like a minute, which again is really insane. And I know it's kind of dependent on like what, you know, sigils and what gear and stuff you have, but just take a look at this. Okay, so my load up for my AFK team is a Rakam, because again, Rakam is just the character that I invested in. He just has a load of health, and you can see that he has 63,000 health. I have Narmaya, and she's got, you know, Setsuna. She has her self buff. She's got Utter Devotion for Enmity. And then the one that I really want to talk about is Eugen. When it comes to his skills, something that I think is really important is actually taking Paralyzing Bullet and Sumrak. Now, again, you could argue that some of these other skills will end up doing more damage, but I actually think that the combo of Paralyzing Bullet, Sumrak, and Armor Piercing Round actually makes certain rounds just clearable in like 20-30 seconds on Maniac. Now, again, if you're doing this actively, that's probably nothing new to you. That's probably pretty obvious. But for your entire team to do that AFK in under a minute or even sometimes 30 seconds, that's kind of insane value, especially if you're, I don't know, just trying to do homework on the side, or if you're trying to watch something on the side, watch anime, whatever, and then you just have Eugen one-shotting the boss. Insane value. And now finally, the character that, again, I leveled and the character I like a lot is Lancelot, because he does decent damage. He has Kaltwinger. I'm probably not saying that right, but Kaltwinger is a freeze, and Glaciite does really well for freezing certain bosses. And again, if you're trying to one-shot a boss, there's nothing better than bypassing something like Overdrive or a phase where they're gonna jump just by freezing them. And then again, you pair Kaltwinger, so the freeze of Lancelot, alongside the paralyze of Eugen, and the boss pretty much doesn't do anything and it gets one shot. Let me show you what I mean though. Okay, so like I mentioned, we're going to be fighting Garrison, because Garrison is pretty much like the biggest pushover when it comes to bosses in the game. But we're on Maniac mode, which I get it, it's not proud, but honestly, even for my proud run where I'm able to AFK and fight Garrison and the Narbanju, but I don't even. In any case, if it's not the proud mode, a lot of your runs will end up only taking like less than a minute. For proud mode, some of the runs end up taking like 5 minutes, and although you are guaranteed the potential to get something like a crit hit 5 or like, you know, a crit hit 5+, and you know, you're guaranteed a curio, and that's not something that you're guaranteed with Maniac. It is still like literally 5 times faster. So let's take a look. So again, I'm not moving, no movement whatsoever. So Eugen, as you can see, he just stunned. He's now doing Sumrak after doing the Disruptor. They do their Link skill. He's at 53 HP. And then Lancelot uses his freeze, the Glaciite. And assuming that the RNG of the armor piercing rounds is good, it'll actually end up hitting Garrison and one-shotting him. I missed like, I think 1 or 2 bullets, which is why, again, this ended up not clearing in 30 seconds. But it cleared in about, what, this is 35-ish seconds? He's at 1%. So basically, if your AI isn't being dumb and you get a little bit lucky maybe with like the crits, or you have a little bit better gear, this is literally a 30-second run. No hands, no nothing. Again, my characters are definitely not optimized. I've gotten them like max awakened weapons, which is arguably a little bit more difficult, but I'm not putting on like super go to gear on them. They're definitely not min-max. I think most of them have like 5 or 6 damage sigils. And as you can see, it was a 42-second run, which is a stark contrast to, again, you know, clearing out like a 5-minute proud run if you prefer this and you just want curios. But again, if you just take a look at the things that you get access to, you have more of the Searing War Axes, you get Dark Orbs, you get the Arm Guards. Again, you get a curio, you have the ability to get some like Right Stones, and again, you also can just get Silver Centrums, which is insane value, and I think that's pretty underrated because a lot of people really want Silver Centrums, but, you know, how are you going to get it? Are you going to sell certain things? Are you going to be farming a stage? Are you going to be exchanging? It's kind of difficult, and while you're trying to bang out, again, farming for curios, which is primarily the reason why I AFK on that stage, you can also just get Silver Centrums. You also just get, again, knick-knack vouchers that you can then sell for additional sigils. It's kind of like an all-in-one stage, which is really good, and all of it can clear, again, you saw it, I was literally at 1% at 30 seconds. It can literally be cleared 30 or less seconds, and then on average, or, you know, at the worst end, it can like maybe take a minute and 5 seconds. So let's just round it at about, what, 45 seconds for a run? Insane. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the thing that we all want and need, but we just, for some reason, don't deserve it according to side games. And yes, that's the Damascus Ingot and the Azerite Splendor. If you aren't familiar with what those two things are, the Damascus Ingot allows you to uncap or upgrade a weapon's total max level without needing any of the resources, which is nice in certain cases, and I'll explain exactly why I think you should definitely be careful with how you use them. Okay, so for instance, if you're trying to farm the Tayu Itar head unit, or if you're tired of farming it, because honestly, farming that part is really frustrating, what you can actually do is just press tab, you have an Azerite Splendor, and it just takes you from level 11 to level 15, which again is much better than the Ingot equivalent, because this takes you from 11 to 15. However, again, the amount of resources that you save is insane. Azerite Splendor's really good, so are the ingots. But again, something that I do want to mention about these two resources is that ultimately, because of how rare they are and how annoying it is sometimes to farm for these things, you should be kind of careful with how you use them. And I've kind of compiled a list of the stages or the resources that I see that I pretty much label as like no-nos, and I just don't want to fight them, and I would rather just pretty much use the Azerite Splendor on them, or I'll end up just bypassing the upgrade stage with the Damascus Ingot. And to be honest, guys, for the Damascus Ingot, if it has anything to do with upgrading the Excavalian Omega Anima, or having to fight the Golem where you have to slide around the stage, that's kind of annoying, and honestly, it's kind of a pain in the neck. I personally don't really like farming that stage, and there's not many times where you actually end up farming the desert stage anyways because it's so slow. So personally, this is around when I end up using my Damascus Ingot on a stage or an upgrade. Again, it's kind of a pain in the neck, and although you only need 3 and it's only for like a certain stage, this to me is already enough of a turnoff where like, okay, I have to fight through a stage and I get knocked back and there's kind of no way to bypass it. You can't really gear gap it or clear it in like 30, like, you know, 30, 40, 50 seconds. Otherwise, you know, obviously if you want to use your Azerite Splendor or like, you know, your Damascus Ingot on anything, feel free. But to be honest with you guys, between the Excavalian Omega Anima and what I just mentioned previously with the Tayu Itar head thing, both of them are really annoying and I really don't enjoy farming either of those, because for the Tayu Itar thing, unless if you have like a full stun build already built, you'll end up like one-shotting the robot before you could even farm out the part anyways, and sometimes the head doesn't even pop out even when you break all the legs, so it's like, whatever. And I also don't like farming a really slow golem stage, so I also just bypass the stage as well. As a final parting tip for that section, something that I definitely also see people forget is that you should really be regularly checking your Azerite Journal, because as you upgrade stuff from either, you know, your weapons or your masteries, you do unlock a lot of things. I believe, again, you can see right below me, there's like a little claim all, and sometimes you, depending on what you clear, you gain different rewards, but sometimes that includes, okay, so it was just a glitter crystal, but sometimes it'll include like an Azerite Splendor. You can see some of the rewards that you get like a critical hit 5+ from uncapping all of Catalina's weapons. It's just very worth it to try and check into this. And again, not that this is only specifically for Azerite Splendors, because again, you get a bunch of rewards from this, but it is definitely worth checking into, because not only do you get the trophies and sometimes the titles, sometimes you get stuff like the, you know, the Damascus Ingot and the Azerite Splendor. Okay, now I did lie, and this will kind of pair in alongside like the shop section of like the things that you probably missed, but something that I think is heavily underrated, and I think a lot of people should really look back into obtaining or getting, is Stout Heart. If you aren't familiar with what Stout Heart is, it's probably because you didn't even know that it was in the game. You might have heard, like, you might have picked up like a steel nerve, or you might have seen it from like certain characters, and you're probably curious about what it is. But what Stout Heart does is it makes you uninterruptible by foe attacks. And now, while certain characters you probably end up getting one shot anyways, for some characters that have to play melee, this is extremely valuable. You know, if you want to set up for like a charge attack and you don't want to have to, you know, use a skill that only gives you Stout Heart or only makes you uninterruptible during charging, consider using Stout Heart, because in all honesty, guys, especially since it's literally just exchangeable and it's not something that you have to get from like sigils in like the store, you can just farm out the Destrudos, you can farm out all these things. Again, ridiculous, by the way. I cannot believe how annoying it is to farm Tayo Itar's head unit and the Destrudo. But in any case, because this is available in the shop, it is worth noting that it is kind of worth investing in. If you end up having like an endgame build that uses Stout Heart, I believe there's a lot of people that are actually pairing it with Steel Nerve, and the two of them not only make you a little bit tankier, it also makes you, again, uninterruptible, which for certain characters, if you don't like getting knocked back or things like that, very good value. Okay, now the final thing that you probably didn't miss, but you might be interested to know, is that there's actually a really unique trait, or there's something that Cygames or Granblue decided to code in when it comes to your damage numbers. Okay, so the thing is that actually when it comes to damage numbers, if you aren't aware, there's actually differences and there's actually significance to the things that you're seeing right here, even though you probably can't see anything because Lancelot is hitting literally 7,000 times a minute. But here's basically what you need to know about damage numbers and why it's kind of interesting to kind of keep an eye out for it. The first thing is that if there's a line or a gash or a slash between your damage numbers, it indicates that you're hitting your maximum damage. It's your damage cap. You cannot go beyond this. So you see how there was just a gold circle there? Basically, if you see the gold circles, that means that you're hitting a critical or you're hitting a weak spot. This is where a lot of like the weak point damage, the exploit damage comes into play. And then furthermore, if you see the exclamation points at the end of your numbers, that means that you're applying a crit. And although I'm not able to do it right now, I don't think I could show it. If your numbers are gold, that means that you have either War Elemental, or you're hitting, you know, you're hitting a weak spot, or you're applying exploit damage. And those were the 5 things that you probably missed when it came to Granblue Fantasy. If you guys enjoyed or if you learned something, make sure to like, comment, turn the notification bell, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, guys. In all honesty, a lot of these things were things that admittedly I didn't realize, and then someone like looked and watched what I was doing, or I'd ask like a question, they're like, how did you not know this? And I was like, well, that's crazy. I have 400 hours in the game and I didn't know this. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video though, guys. Make sure to check out the rest of my socials. Thank you so much for the support when it comes to the Granblue content. I hope you guys have been enjoying. Hope you guys like it. I'll try to stream or make more content for the game very, very soon. Thank you so much though. I will catch you guys on the next one. I will catch you guys all in the next one though. Adios.